Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution.
The earth is in the process of transformation. A separation, such as when a cell divides. Half will remain in the third dimension, the old earth, where there is conflict and violence. The other half will ascend to the fifth dimension, the new earth, where no negativity can exist. All across the world, there are internet content creators that are sharing new information to raise your consciousness and prepare you to ascend to the new earth. Join me, Naima Latif, every Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time, and we will introduce to you these voices of enlightenment. Grand Rising, and thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday edition of the Voices of Enlightenment. I'm Naima Latif, and as always, we appreciate you for being with us, because one of the things that we seek to do as we speak of those who are separating and are preparing to enter that new earth that we speak of, that involves some preparation. And the preparation is, for the most part, giving you information that will change your perspective of what is happening. There, again, are two kinds of people. There are the aware and the unaware. The aware are tuned in to the new information that is all over the internet, designed to transform our thinking and prepare us to create a different society, one that is based on love, kindness, compassion, sharing. That's the world that we are creating. Now, the unaware are stuck in fear of those they are believing have some kind of power over them, and they're constantly fearing the kind of stressful situations that they experience every day. Not enough money to pay bills, fear of getting fired from a job, unpleasantness from a spouse, not able to find a spouse, misbehaving children, and all these other things that consume their energy and make them believe that they are powerless. These are the unaware, the ones who perceive themselves to be powerless. So, of course, we have our religious institutions that tell us to have faith. And many of us are going to religious services weekly, monthly, however often we choose to go. And we're listening to the scriptures from whatever holy book we have accepted. And many of these scriptures get reinterpreted by today's preachers. They are giving us their perception of what the Creator is trying to tell us. And they say, most of them, that this came from a divine inspiration. And so they were inspired to preach the word. Okay. And I'm certainly not knocking that. But many of these scriptures are several centuries old, even if they're a few hundred years old. They speak to a culture that has passed and a time that is no more, a lifestyle that no longer exists. And yet there are teachings that are archaic and often harmful, because In centuries past, there was a lot of misogyny, disdain, even hatred for women, scorn for women, imbalance in our perspective about the male and female relationship. Now, we've asked the question today: is God still speaking and writing books today? And that answer, for those who are aware, is yes. So today we're going to examine a couple of authors of such books, and they both have different styles of how they acquire this information. One is a channeler, Ellott Eli Jackson. And for those who are not aware of channeling, it is simply a telepathic connection to another entity, something that has been often frowned upon in our culture because of programming from movies like The Exorcist, or you're worried about demonic possession and all of that. But truly, all of us have the ability to communicate telepathically with those who are embodied and not embodied. We have that ability, but we've been frightened out of it. But Ellott Eli Jackson, he and his wife Diane, who works with him in this process, they have created an organization that is designed to help those connect as a community. People who are not only channelers, but espousing the teachings of the current books being brought forth by the source of all knowledge, the source of all life, the source, that energy that we call God. So today we want to bring you a little bit of a channeled message by Ellott Eli Jackson. And as most channels, he takes a breath and then goes into a trance. He is a trance channeler. And because the source of all life identifies himself, herself, itself as the breath of life, most channelers, when they are seeking to induce a trance in order to connect telepathically with another being, they will breathe. And that is the process. So without further ado, we're going to bring to you a channeled message from Ellott Eli Jackson, coming to us, bringing information from the source of all life, as we address that issue that has plagued our cultures across the planet, and that is accepting leadership from women. What does the creator of the universe, the source of all life, that which we call God, really say about women? Well, let us take a look, and then we'll be right back.
Hi, the source wants to discuss with you today the female leadership on planet Earth. So they'll be here in a second. Hold on. Hello. About the time that your species began to eat meat, because you were not designed to eat meat, the male usurped the female authority, and everything on the planet has been awry since. Since December 21st, 2012, the axis on your planet and all planets in your solar system shifted a molecular movement. This affected the human brain, and in fact, began the surge of the female beginning to regain leadership. The reason that I'm talking to you is that it is very important that the female does not lead as the male. And because we are elephant, the very air that we breathe, we are also low portions of ourselves, or what you might call as humanly fallen angels or demons. These portions of us do not wish for your planet to be a place of peace and serenity. So since the time that the male, fueled by influence of lower portions of us, took the leadership, they have been on a campaign to discredit the female. Some examples would be how they have stated early on in your planet history that the female was subservient and a baby factory and should not be in points of leadership. In your religions, they have made Eve to be the impotent for all sin in your planet, which was to transform things. They have painted Mary Magdalene, the wife of Jesus of Yeshua, to be a harlot and a prostitute, controlled by some demons, which was to transform her. They have tried to keep the female down to not to vote, not to speak, not to be in the ministry of your religion for centuries. But once again, as of December the 24th, 2012, all those things have changed. Now, if the female begins to serve the place of God, once again, we need for her not to mimic or act as the male in the family. Lower portions of us have begun through the Me Too movement. Now, we are talking about this because you have to understand on your planet, your home, your earth, all of you act the way that you act at the vibration that you are at with the information that you have received and accepted. You cannot act any other way until your vibration has risen and or you have accepted different information. The majority of males on your planet were given information, as we spoke earlier, that the female was subservient. You should not speak, you should walk behind the male and be silent. So males acted accordingly. Up until the recent generation that is rising now, males were taught to disrespect women. And that is exactly what they did. So, as the female begins to make her rise, she must understand with compassion that the males acted as they did, contingent upon the information that they were fed. So once again, they could not act any other way. So of course it is not a high vibration to destroy anyone's life, their well-being, their family structure, because of some behaviors that they exhibited that they could not help but exhibit. Of course, it is prudent to expose them for some of the things that they did when they did not have the knowledge of higher vibrational information. So expose them, but do not destroy them. If we could be troubled, we can't, but if we could, we would be troubled how lower portions of us have whispered to and influenced many women to literally destroy men, their legacies, and their lives because of the behaviors that they exhibited when they knew not better. This is very important for the female leadership. If she is to lead, what she must do if your plan is to rise in vibration. She must not be vindictive. She must not be vengeful. She must be informational and explain that this kind of behavior is no longer accepted and should no longer be accepted. So as many of you peruse the recesses of your mind and the things that happened to you when you were younger, the way that you may have been treated by some of your male counterparts, please once again keep in mind that they did not know any better. They are, however, remembering better now because the female has said enough. And this is good in and of itself. Now, the female, when she leads, has to lead with compassion. It is very important. Otherwise, she will act the same way that her male counterpart is acting. This is why we are briefly talking about this, because it is more important than you can imagine, many of you. It is so important that we are addressing you now. Because if the female does not take a stance of compassion towards her male counterpart, it will cause the vibration of resentment fueled by lower portions of us that has already begun. And it's our wish and desire for this to be, as you would understand in real terms, nipped in the bud. Stop now. So once again, if you are a female in your family, you have been disrespected in life, good, self-affirming. Advances made towards you that you did not experience. Acknowledge. It would be best if you would confront the individuals personally, if you could. Look at those telecommunication technicians. Tell them that you did not appreciate what was done to you, but that you understand that they could not at the time act no other way. Once you have addressed this trauma to your mental and emotional being. For your spiritual being understands that that is the way that they had to behave because that is what they learned.
That is quite a message. And it encompasses things such as forgiveness, but also acknowledgement of wrongdoing. So, Ellott Eli Jackson, who is a channeler for the source of all life, that which we call God, is one of those contemporary voices bringing through contemporary information from a contemporary, all powerful, all knowing being. And some people who might be kind of stuck on a religious thought to say, well, how come he's not speaking in the thous and those and these? And, that's old English biblical language that is not contemporary language. So today's source, God, creator, is speaking to us in our own language, our own vernacular, our own dialect. and it's made plain, and the principles are the same. But we're going to take a break and come back and talk about what the voice of God today is sounding like, especially because so many attitudes that have been accepted by our religious institutions are being refuted. How do we handle that? We'll be right back after this quick break, and we invite you to give us your comments. What do you think about channelers and those who are bringing through voices from the spirit realm? And they're regular people, but their message is so very plain and easy to understand and makes sense. So, do we really believe that God speaks through people and can speak through any regular person that doesn't have a title of reverend or minister? They're just some regular guy or woman who is willing to listen. Well, we'll be right back after this quick break, so stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in a moment, so stay with us.
Welcome to Master Force with Mushim Suit. Join us each week on Thursdays at 7 a.m. Central, live on Facebook and YouTube on the Female Solution page, as we dive into powerful topics designed to assist you in mastering your life force. Our conversations feature a diverse lineup of experts, all dedicated to your growth. Tune in weekly to discover new ways to elevate your spirit and raise your vibration. And remember, we are ascending.
We are ascending. And we are ascending because it is time for this planet to change, to awaken, to transform. And so much of what we are experiencing is that transformation. However, as Ellott Eli Jackson explains, all things, everything is the one thing, the energy of creation we call God, everything. So even that which we consider to be the evil forces, he speaks of it as lower portions of us. So if the source of all life is recognizing that all things, even the things that are choosing to behave in a way that is harmful, is also part of itself, then there is no separate force, God and the devil. You're misunderstanding that. All is part of the one. And it's just a matter of vibration. Are you on the higher vibration, which is love, kindness, compassion? Or are you on the lower vibration, which is meanness, cruelty, insensitivity, greed, all of the things that cause pain on our planet? You're either vibrating at the higher vibrations, and therefore you are participating in the creation of a positive world, or you're operating at the lower vibrations and you're influenced by, as Source says, the lower portions of us, the lower vibrations. You're listening to that voice that says, cuss out this woman who got in front of you in line at the grocery store. How dare her? And you got to get somewhere on time, and she eased herself up in front of you and took your spot. When we behave in a way that is ugly, we're choosing that. And we're choosing that because we're perhaps influenced by those lower vibrations, those lower portions of the divine that are lacking in love. That's all. But we're being taught that it is possible to create a society that is based on love, it's based on kindness, it's based on forgiveness. We're taught that we are able to create that if we choose to. And every moment of every day, we're making choices. So we must take responsibility for the choices that we're making. We must take responsibility for our decisions to either treat people with kindness or unkindness. We're choosing this. We're creating this. And those who are in tune are experiencing the higher vibrations of love. Now, this is the essence of all our spiritual teachings, but they end up being distorted by the politics of the time, the culture of the time, and even as sourced, as channeled through Ellott Eli Jackson, speaks of the way men have been conditioned to disrespect women. That is an imbalance which now needs to be balanced, because in order for our planet to return to a state of peace, women must rise to positions of leadership. So if you are part of a faith community that is still holding on to beliefs that women should not lead, or women are of lesser intelligence, or women are too intellectually or emotionally frail to have positions of authority, that is being refuted by the source of all life that we call God. If you're ready to accept the modern day expressions of that voice. Often people will quote 2,000-year-old scriptures and reinterpret them and try to justify behaviors that were engaged on by people who just didn't know any better, as the source of all life has said. You didn't know any better at the time because this is how you were conditioned. But now that you know better, you must do better. So this is the challenge that we have. Are those of us who hear the voices that are speaking for the divine mind, the creator of the universe, are we willing to change our perspective, our cultural values, which have allowed the disdain and disrespect of one gender over another? And I also thought it was interesting about the eating meat. Of course, I've mentioned often I'm vegetarian. I do not eat flesh. That is a choice because killing creates a vibration. I do not want the energy of slaughter of meat entering my body. So that is a spiritual reason why I do not eat flesh, even though there are some humane ways of ending life. And if you are in need of the flesh of an animal in order to stay alive, it is permissible. And there have been many times that people have had to eat so-called forbidden flesh just to stay alive. But we know that in terms of the body's digestive system, we were just told we were not made to eat meat. And so all of these illnesses that we see manifested are as a result of us taking on a diet that our bodies really were not designed to express. So there are those who do, in fact, hear and transmit the words coming from the divine today. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll hear some words from Neale Donald Walsh. He's not a channeler, but he did, in fact, in a moment of despair, calling out to God, saying at the time he was going through homelessness and recovering from a car accident, and just his life was a mess. And he was just so frustrated. And he called out, just tell me, how do I make my life work? And he started hearing the voice from God saying, oh, do you really want to know? And from that point, he started writing what he heard, and his writings evolved into a series called Conversations with God. So we're going to share a bit of that with you when we come back after this quick break. So stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in a moment after this.
In which we're doing this documentary for Douglas Robinson, your death will not be in vain.
He was a heck of a great dude.
And I love Doug. Doug loved me.
Just being around him, he had a good spirit. He was a healing person.
They are there.
Get SROs back.
When you give to the poor,
should not be forced out of their neighborhoods when it goes through a period of transformation.
Because there are too many people who are losing their homes to taxes because they can't pay a $1,000 tax bill.
Have you seen all the solar farms popping up everywhere? You know, the big fields with the solar panels. There's one in our community. They produce electricity using the clean energy of the sun to send to the power grid to reduce our energy costs. Because not everybody can get solar panels put on their roof the way I have, but everybody can enroll for free to share the energy produced by the solar farms. That's why they were built. You know you're supposed to be getting a 10 to 20% savings on your bill for that, right? Illinois has a goal to transition by 2050 to 100% clean energy. So everybody needs to be connected. People in other communities are already getting their savings. So I'll be by to see you because they want to make sure you get your savings as well. It just takes a few minutes. I'm Naima Latif. Call me if you have any questions. 312-849-3456.
And we are back. Now, if you are sensitive to the needs of this planet and you know how much we have destroyed so much of our natural resources, digging into the earth and really making a mess and not really leaving the best conditions for future generations, we want to transition to clean energy everywhere. And you can be a part of that. Get connected somewhere to a local solar farm so you can begin to get part of your electricity from the energy of the sun, solar panels, ways that do not use what they call fossil fuels like oil, coal, things that you have to dig out of the earth to get, because we do want to begin to repair the planet. And you can do this and at the same time be helpful to a very compassionate work that's being done by our sister, host of Monday Morning Mindfulness, Zelda Robinson, who, of course, is feeding those who are unhoused every week in honor of her brother, Douglas Robinson. And we want you to be a part of that higher conscious movement. So just simply text the front and back page of your electric bill to the number on the screen, 312-849-3456, and we'll start the process of connecting you to a local solar farm, and you'll get that 10 to 20% savings on your bill. That is what we're offering, and that is what we are participating in as a way to honor and respect our dear Mother Earth. So be a part of the higher conscious movement toward clean energy. We appreciate you so much. Now, we do recognize that a lot of people have difficulties believing in things like channeling and believing in things that may refute some of their long-held religious beliefs. And people say they believe in a creator, but they don't really believe that God speaks to people. And I always wonder about that. I'm like, okay, if you don't really believe that God speaks to people, why are you praying? What do you think is happening when you are? Do you think anybody's listening? And deep down, I find that many people don't really believe that there's anybody out there listening, or there's any entity that they're connected to. Because if they believed it, then there wouldn't be such a difficulty in understanding that God speaks in just regular language and talks to everybody. Well, this is one thing that Neale Donald Walsh, author of the Conversations with God book series, explains. And God explains through him that God speaks to everybody. The question is, who listens? Are you listening? Because all of us are connected to the source of all life. We are part of all that is. And instead of us believing we're this separate entity doomed to either hell or maybe admitted to heaven, maybe, if we're good enough, all of those old teachings that truly do not create the best human behavior, because they are faulty belief systems. And if we understood truth, then we would behave better toward each other. It's so simple. But let's take a look at the words shared from the divine to Neale Donald Walsh. And the interesting thing about conversations with God is that, once again, the language is just very, very basic language, not old English, as the biblical text is written in, but just very basic language that allows us to understand plainly in our own vernacular what's being taught. And it's challenging for many people. When the book series first came out, as a matter of fact, when the book series first came out, there were many who were, well, his publisher, first of all, did not want to publish the book under that title, Conversations with God. You know, people don't have conversations with God. And he insisted, he said, no, I'm going to call it Conversations with God, because that's what it was. And so that was a challenge for him in getting his publisher to agree to publish it under that name, Conversations with God. And he enlisted the vocal skills of a popular actor, Ed Asner, to be that voice of God in his books. And also Ellen Bernstein, because sometimes he had a male voice and sometimes he had a female voice, which was a good balance, because people have this idea that the creator of the universe is a male, when in fact, male and female are physical designations of a physical body and have nothing to do with the spiritual energy of creation. So this has been a challenge for many to listen to these words, because even though what is said makes sense, there's no condemnation. And people have been highly indoctrinated with the idea that there is hell awaiting people, that there is hell awaiting people if they don't obey. And that is what so many of our religions are based on: punishment. And because they're heavily based on punishment, as opposed to teaching and guidance and recognizing that people make mistakes when they don't know any better, they are fear-based. And when you do things out of fear, you generally make bad decisions because you're trying to avoid something that you're afraid is going to happen. And the idea was, if you believe you're going to hell if you don't obey rules, that would be a way to make people obey rules. But then those who enforce the rules end up becoming corrupt because of the power that they wield in being able to instill fear in people. And this is the distortion that we have in our society today. Whereas if people simply complied with that which was in harmony with their fellow beings, we would have harmony. So they need to use fear as a tactic to get obedience. Ultimately, it doesn't work, because what has to happen is understanding. People do things right because they understand the impact of what they have done, and they're choosing to have a positive impact. That is what works. So let's take a look at some Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsh. And we'll look at, does this sound like the scriptures that you have been accepting, or is this a contradiction? And does this sound like something God would say? What do you think? Oh, wait. Let's make sure we've got our sound.
Hello, my name is Neale Donald Walsh. You are about to have an extraordinary experience. You're about to hear a conversation with God. Yes, I know that's not possible. You probably think or have been taught that's not possible. One can talk to God, sure, but not with God. I mean, God's not going to talk back, right? At least not in the form of a regular, everyday kind of conversation. Well, that's what I thought, too. Then this experience happened to me. I mean that literally. I mean, the experience happened to me. The words you're about to hear were not written by me. They happened to me, and as you listen, the same experience will happen to you, for we are all led to the truth for which we are ready. God, it turns out, talks to everybody, the good and the bad, the saint and the scoundrel, and certainly all of us in between. Take you, for instance. God has come to you in many ways in your life. This is just another one of them. How many times have you heard the old axiom, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear? In the spring of 1992, it was around Easter, as I recall, an extraordinary phenomenon occurred in my life. God began talking with you through me. Let me explain. I was very unhappy during that period, personally, professionally, and emotionally, and my life was feeling like a failure on all levels. And as I'd been in the habit for years of writing my thoughts down in letters, which, by the way, I usually never delivered, I picked up my trusty yellow legal pad and began pouring out my feelings. But this time, rather than another letter to another person I imagined to be victimizing me, I thought I'd go straight to the source, straight to the greatest victimizer of them all. I decided to write a letter to God. It was a spiteful, passionate letter, full of confusion, contortions, and condemnations, and a pile of angry questions. Why wasn't my life working? What would it take to get it to work? Why could I not find happiness in relationship? Was the experience of adequate money going to elude me forever? And finally, and most emphatically, what had I done to deserve a life of such continuing struggle? To my surprise, as I scribbled out the last of my bitter, unanswerable questions and prepared to toss my pen aside, my hand remained poised over the paper as if held there by some invisible force. Abruptly, the pen began moving on its own. I had no idea what I was about to write, but an idea seemed to be coming, so I decided to flow with it. Out came...
Do you really want an answer to all these questions, or are you just venting?
I blinked, and then my mind came up with a reply. I wrote that down, too. Both. I'm venting, sure, but if these questions have answers, I'd sure as hell like to hear them.
You are sure as hell about a lot of things, but wouldn't it be nice to be sure as heaven?
And I wrote, what is that supposed to mean? Before I knew it, I had begun a conversation. And I was not writing so much as taking dictation. What you are about to hear is a reading of a large portion of that dialogue. I hope you receive benefit from a very simple question, actually. How does God talk? And to whom?
I talk to everyone.
All the time.
The question is not to whom do I talk,
but who lives?
Talk the word again. It's a much better word, a much fuller, more accurate one. Each other. Me to you, you to me. We are immediately constricted by the unbelievable limitation of words. For this reason, I do not communicate by words alone. In fact, rarely do I do so. My most common form of communication is through feeling. Feeling is the language of the soul. If you want to know what's true for you about something, look to how you're feeling about it. Feelings are sometimes difficult to discover, and often even more difficult to acknowledge. Yet hidden in your deepest feelings is your highest truth. The trick is to get to those feelings. I will show you how. Again, if you wish. I also communicate with thought. Thought and feelings are not the same, although they can occur at the same time. In communicating with thought, I often use images and pictures. For this reason, thoughts are more effective than mere words as tools of communication. In addition to feelings and thoughts, I also use the vehicle of experience as a grand communicator. And finally, when feelings and thoughts and experience all fail, I use words. Words are really the least effective communicator. They are most open to misinterpretation, most often misunderstood. Why is that? It is because of what words are. Words are merely utterances, noises that stand for feelings, thoughts, and experience. They're symbols, signs, insignias. They're not truth. They're not the real thing. Words may help you understand something. Experience allows you to know. Yet there are some things you cannot experience. So I've given you other tools of knowing, and these are called feelings. And so too, thoughts. Now, the supreme irony here is that you've all placed so much importance on the Word of God, and so little on the experience. In fact, you place so little value on experience that when what you experience of God differs from what you've heard of God, you automatically discard the experience and own the words, when it should be just the other way around. Your experience and your feelings about a thing represent what you factually and intuitively know about that thing. Words can only seek to symbolize what you know, and can often confuse what you know. These, then, are the tools with which I communicate. Yet they are not the methods. For not all feelings, not all thoughts, not all experience, and not all words are from me. Many words have been uttered by others in my name. Many thoughts and many feelings have been sponsored by causes not of my direct creation. Many experiences result from these. The challenge is one of discernment. The difficulty is knowing the difference between messages from God and data from other sources. Discrimination is a simple matter with the application of a basic rule. Mine is always your highest thought, your clearest word, your grandest feeling. Anything less is from another source. Now the task of differentiation becomes easy, for it should not be difficult even for the beginning student to identify the highest, the clearest, and the grandest. Yet will I give you these guidelines. The highest thought is always that thought which contains joy. The clearest words are those words which contain truth. The grandest feeling is that feeling which you call love. Joy, truth, love. These three are interchangeable, and one always leads to the other. It matters not in which order they are placed. Having with these guidelines determined which messages are mine and which have come from another source, the only question remaining is whether my messages will be heeded. Most of my messages are not. Some because they seem too good to be true. Others because they seem too difficult to follow. Many because they are simply misunderstood. Most because they are not received. My most powerful messenger is experience, and even this you ignore. Especially this you ignore. Your world would not be in its present condition were you to have simply listened to your experience. The result of your not listening to your experience is that you keep reliving it over and over again. For my purpose will not be thwarted, nor my will be ignored. You will get the message sooner or later.
Wow. You will get the message sooner or later. Well, that was Neale Donald Walsh's book, portion of it, Conversations with God. And again, he enlisted two of his actor friends, Ed Asner and Ellen Bernstein, in order to have a balance in the voice of God. There was both a male voice and a female voice, just so that we could be clear that the divine energy of creation is neither male nor female, but all things. And so even that tends to be challenged, especially because we have been living in a largely very misogynistic, woman-hating society. And that is what has to be corrected, as we are being shown. Because if we're truly going to have a society that is peaceful, we cannot have one gender devalued and suppressed. And those spiritual belief systems that advocate this or promote this or continue to uphold this, they are creating the problems that cannot be resolved until we eliminate this. So these are some images of Neale Donald Walsh. And he is a public speaker and is often asked to present, as many authors are. So when a regular person comes up with a book and they say this book comes from God, are they charged with blasphemy? This is the changing times that we live in. The internet has made it possible for people to share information globally instantaneously. And so words as coming from the source of all life, coming through regular people, are often refuting long-held religious concepts. And this is, in fact, the spiritual warfare that we're experiencing, even though it's not involving physical altercations. It is a war for the spirit, the mind, the heart, the soul. What are you going to believe, and how are you going to conduct your life? And how are you going to treat other people? And what are you going to believe about other people? Are you going to continue to believe that other people are inherently evil or inherently bad or inherently condemned by the Creator because they're not following your religious belief system? All of these false ideas continue to create the imbalance that we experience. And we have the power to choose to not create this. As was said by the one we call God, as spoken to Neale Donald Walsh, we are the ones that are creating this same situation because we're not paying attention to our experience. It's telling us this doesn't work. So we want to consider what makes sense and whether or not what we're believing feels right. He spoke of feeling, communicating through feeling. If something makes you sad or fearful, it's not coming from the divine. So what does that tell you about so much of the information that you absorb every day that makes you sad or fearful? It's not coming from the divine. It's not coming from the higher portions of us, as Ellott Eli Jackson speaks of. So are we going to listen to the contemporary voice of the source of all life, the one we call God? Are we going to read the books that have been produced by those who are writing today's words as received from God? Are we going to? Well, you can look up Ellott Eli Jackson on the internet, and his organization is one that you can become a part of because he is helping to train people in heightening their sensitivity so that they can be in contact with the source of all life and can receive information. Now, again, if we are believing that the creator of the universe speaks to everybody, then we shouldn't have a hesitation to believe that we too can hear the voice of God. And we can, and we should seek to hear that voice and heed that voice, because above and beyond anybody else's belief systems, we have the power to hear our own communication, and we have the power to respond. So Ellott Eli Jackson, he and his wife Diane have developed an organization, the Quantum Matrix Center, and he's written several books and, of course, continues to channel. and Neale Donald Walsh with his Conversations with God. He's got an entire series. So you can choose to hear the words, the contemporary words of the Creator. Or you could pray and just be quiet and listen for a response, because God speaks to everyone. The question is, who's listening? Are you? I'm Naeem Latif. Thank you for joining us today. And as always, we invite you to watch us every day, 7 a.m. and again at 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 12 noon Saturdays and Sundays. And come on back tomorrow for Master Force with Mushem Sut. And until next time, continue to shine your light. We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, Dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jareh. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.